We're back.
Hey, Flatus, can you do that Chewbacca impression one more time?
Yeah, do it for us one more time.
Oh,
All right, and
oh my God.
yeah, Kylos is away from her computer, but we decided to bring it back rather than wait because we were having a really good discussion while we
And you
were,
guys weren't involved, and you
yeah,
guys should have been involved, so we're sorry for that.
Kidnapped by gnomes.
We...
uh,
Well, the
yeah, it's
best part
like,
is now nobody knows my secret. Like, the name's mine.
um, so we were talking about economies and some of the things that we liked about it, and I think that Vanguard had one of the best crafting-driven economies because, as I was saying, like one of the criticism about crafting in other MMOs is that the low-level crafters they spend all this time and money gathering up these resources to make stuff, and then like the stuff that they make is worthless, and then they move on to the next thing. Vanguard had this really cool system where if you didn't want to harvest the materials, you didn't have to, and when you made something um, you didn't you did it work, but you didn't have to try and resell something that you had worked for. You just sat down and said, "Hey, I'm going to do work orders," and off you went. You were leveling your crafting. The criticism about Vanguard crafting is that it's not a whole lot. It's not a whole lot of fun. It
It's
can
extremely grindy,
repetitive.
but they
It's journal.
let's be honest for a moment. Vanguard was unfinished. The crafting system was unfinished. Their core concept, like having it be an actual mini games with complications that come up, bonus results that come up, was
Hmm.
extremely good. But it was too limited, just like
It was bad
diplomacy,
in
to be
mass. Like
to be actually working.
Right.
it
Well,
sucked in the beginning. It was too hard, and you couldn't craft enough items to really make a profit. So there were still problems with it, but it was a step in the right direction.
But
right. What I liked about it was the fact that me, the crafter, I could determine my chance of success. It wasn't automatic and it wasn't random. It was definitely player handled. Like I could choose one strategy that I thought was more successful than other strategies, and the fact that there were different strategies on how to craft was something that I thought was really innovative. Um, but again, it is very grindy, and yeah, it was really hard to find something to make
Why
profitable.
did every okay? So I never really got into Star Wars Galaxy's crafting. I'll be honest, but I
okay,
know it's one of the most renowned. I think Kai played too. Like, who all played Star
Yeah,
Wars Galaxies?
I did.
Kai,
Cal
what
did.
did you what did you really like about Star Wars Galaxies? Did you craft much?
I did not craft and I didn't play for very long because I played right before the patch that broke the
the
game.
patch.
Oh, NCD.
That's the
Is that
patch
what it's
and
called?
I wouldn't touch it after that. No.
Aw.
But crafting was still mostly untouched after that. So basically, what drove Star Wars Galaxy's crafting was a few things. First was resources. They were not fully dynamic, but they were generated by the world, meaning that sometimes certain resources would be up. Resources have certain stats, just like dex, strength, whatever, but then like heat resistance, cold resistance, durability, stuff like that. And those stats would fit into a mathematical equation of an item. And each item had a different set of stats that they were looking for. Certain stats were good, certain stats were bad. So for a crafter, it was almost a challenge to get the right materials and like stock up on all those materials and get good items. Another thing that made Star Wars Galaxy crafting extremely good, and that addresses some of the issues that, for example, Vanguard has, is item decay. You can only use an item for so long until it decays, and then you have two options. Option one, you repair it, lowering the maximum amount of decay, meaning it will break faster again, or you can buy a new one.
Was
And
that
that's
furniture too? Was that like everything?
no,
Vehicles and stuff?
that was kind of again I think unfinished. I think Star Wars Galaxies in a lot of ways was also unfinished, but that was for weapons, armor, grenades, consumables, stuff like that. Not for furniture. It was for vehicles, and it was also for droids. Starship components and such again were untouched by decay. But essentially, in a perfect world, a perfect system, everything should decay, in my opinion, because that is your money sink. That is your big thing that gets money out of the
True.
economy,
But the problem
and
is,
it
it's
really
not as
isn't
easy
that
as calling
annoying.
a repairman an MMO. You don't want a repairman class that just goes around fixing
Why
stuff.
not?
Because then you're just going to be waiting for that person to be online
Yeah.
and stuff like that. I think that caused some
Did
problems. Bard
I?
Tail?
Well, this doesn't specifically apply to MMOs, but I play a LARP. One of the things that goes on there is items do when they're damaged. There's hit points associated with. I mean, long story short, you do have characters whose entire role it is to repair armor and weapons, and they generally do it for either free or cheap. Player base small, but anyways, you could also have that tied into like do what Final Fantasy does, Final Fantasy 14, in that if you're a tailor or a weaver or whatever they want to call it, you can repair cloth. If you're an armor smith, etc., etc., etc. Instead of actually having NPCs that do it for you.
I I Vanguard was the first game that I played where I was comfortable just being a crafter. Like, I did not feel the need to go out and adventure because I felt comfortable being like, hey, if there is anything in this sphere of the game, I can handle any of it. And that was a really comfortable feeling to have because like they were talking, like you become known as like, oh, hey, are you having problems with this? Ask, Jarl was the name of my crafter.
That is cool.
And that's Dave has said, and Dave Jorgensen has said in interviews before, that's one of the reasons that people play games is because it's that sort of ego stroking, becoming famous in this little section of their community that they want to be part of. And Vanguard was actually, it's not just the first, it's the only place that I've really felt like that. Like, I can be comfortable. I don't have to log in and try and do anything other than just do that.
Can we have a psychiatrist class where Flash can bear hugs to everybody and get rewarded?
Bear hug
Like,
everybody.
Isn't that the bard class? Is that the bartender class, right?
Unless you're a nerd, whatever
Real
that
quick.
thing is.
If I as a we just throwing out the good ideas, so you can take this one down. If I'm gonna be building my house in EverQuest next, I would like to have a still where I can craft my own beer inside my house and drink that beer. We're talking about alcohol over here in the chat. I was like, wait a minute, I should be able to craft my own beer in game. Please let me make my own beer in game.
So, what rating do you want the game to have?
I don't care.
Yeah.
Teen, you could listen.
Teen,
There's
you can have alcohol.
Yeah.
You can have alcohol in
it would be
Teen.
T for that.
Name an MMO that doesn't have any sort of alcohol in it these days.
True.
There's one.
Drunken
Brewer's
Cleathan
class.
runs.
I mean, the Warcraft released the tank spec for monks is the drunken spec.
It's called
Brewmaster, okay?
Yeah.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. I tanked as a brewmaster. It was awesome. You threw beer on people and then lit them on fire.
Yep.
Beer.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Can I repeat my bard idea for Omid just in case you missed it Twitter?
Do it.
Omid, if I know you're listening, my idea is give bards the ability to port. Unfortunately, they have to get stonewall drunk and they pass out at a random point, and they'll wake up in some random inn across some place in the world next to a random race class person.
I love
From there,
That is fantastic, and I love
Oh my
that.
gosh.
I would love that every time. I would play. That would be the only. I'd be like, why you bard? I like to get drunk as hell and just wake up in
Wake up
places
some-
I'm not sure where. And
No.
every time it's a new adventure.
Omid, haha, I'm listening.
So in while we were doing our intermission, one of the other things that we talked about economies was that one of the things that makes Eve economy as great is that you actually have to go to where it is at and go and pick it up, right? So the price of something might be different compared on where you are.
Which is, well, that only works in a space MMO though, because what you're suggesting is a regional trade-like system, right? Where something, well, you see that, say, something in this system is cheaper than in that system, so you decide to move it over and get the profit.
Oh, I don't think this is perfect. You guys went right into the Reddit post I want to talk about. There's a guy, well, girl maybe, Ramanil, has a great idea for a regional-based kind of trade system.
Oh, right.
Auction house actually in EverQuest Next. I'm gonna post it in the chat real quick. Can't stand push to talk. Okay, but basically the idea is that there's not only going to be it's based on distance. Okay, so let's say we all found Kinos in the beginning of the game, and then later we decide to establish an outpost, and then that grows into a city, it grows into sort of a civilization. Well, let's say I'm in Kinos and I put something up on the auction house. Well, this could be the way players can view it can be dictated by a lot of different ways. First, let's say orcs kind of camped the road. This is my own interpretation. If orcs sort of camped the road and cut off the trade route between the cities, my item would no longer be available in Freeport. All right, let's say that also the caravans run a certain day and they run a certain route on top of it. So it might take a couple days for my item to show up in different cities. So it encourages local-based trade through a convenient method for the players. You're still working on names that you're constantly going to recognize depending on where you are, but you also don't have to sit there and camp for 3 hours in the tunnel trying to sell your goods.
That would only really work though if travel in the game is actually taking a lot of time, which is not something that is hip these days.
It could be done on a game basis. I mean, you can create sort of a mechanic that says, hey, it takes 2 days to travel to this city. It doesn't have to be the item traveling on an exact cart from city to city. And then maybe you could be rewarded for traveling to the city yourself. It could be maybe it's a limitation on the caravans. I got him.
Are you actually talking about selling goods, or
I'm talking about selling goods on an auction house, yeah.
your own goods? Like, for example, I have a
My
sword
own
and I want to
goods.
sell my...
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But in that case, why don't I just travel to your city and buy it there? If travel is convenient and easy to get.
That's even better. Then it's a win-win. Not only are you making it convenient for people to go ahead and put it up on the auction house to sell, but you're letting people actually have an ability to have a reason for face-to-face communication still. So caravans run Sunday through Monday. Well, it wouldn't work. Monday through Friday. It's Saturday. Well, maybe I'll travel over to Freeport myself and pick up the item instead of waiting the extra days for shipment. You get what I kind of mean? Kai had her hand up.
She's muted.
There we go. Bart.
What I was going to say is that this system reminds me a lot about what Dragon Realms had. They actually had a trader class, and they got experience going from city to city with their
that was their whole point
with their caravans.
Bartel, I did not realize you played Dragon Realm. I thought I was the only one.
I was wanting the homebody empaths, man.
What about piracy? Someone brought that up in chat. I don't remember who it was, but Arvesu. That's amazing. What if there was a piracy system where I could rob caravans, become a criminal? The player was still credited with money who put it up on the auction house, so it's not like I'm actually interrupting someone else's gameplay experience, but I'm interrupting the guards and I'm interrupting the game itself. So the game starts focusing on me and then putting out bounties for me and stuff. Would that be cool? Would you guys be okay with piracy? If the player who put the item up
like
still
a
got
thief
reimbursed?
Class? Like a guy who robs the caravans?
I would love that.
I would too. I was just thinking about that. Like Bartel talked about, like there were people who played the trader class in Dragon's Realm, and again, like that's one of those things that you don't really think about, like because you think of MMOs as like adventuring and everything, but there are people out there that if you create a trader class, that's what they'll play and they'll really enjoy it, and it doesn't diminish the game at all for them. And so I was thinking that, hey, so this person right here has these goods that they want to sell, but they don't want to be burdened by the process of selling it. So they are like, hey, who's the trader? And then like gives it all to the trader. And then the trader takes the risk of, well, I can get X amount of money in this place, but if I take the risk of moving it to this city, I know I could get a better deal. And that becomes the game for them, is that they're the trader, and now they have to face the piracy and the orcs raiding the road as they transport the goods from one location to another as part of their game experience.
That's
and
awesome.
Imagine if they could hire NPC guards or even player guards.
That's what I was saying would be important. Yeah, and also, you have to be very careful, because if someone's going to spend all their time, you have to worry about experience and stuff like that and making it still fun for them. Yeah, Kai?
Oh, yeah. So I would love to see that type of class, or like the trader class. But you know what I would really like to see? Something kind of scoundrelly, where I could say I was going to help them,
smuggler,
take it from them and sell it and keep the money myself.
No,
you have to worry about players getting screwed, though.
I know.
Do we?
Yeah.
Well, the trader could also maybe be the smuggler too. They're the ones that have to take the goods over across borders. Say, two cities are not friendly with one another, or they're at war with one another. The traders could be the ones actually moving the goods back and forth.
I can see this done on an NPC basis. not a player basis. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And you take the risk, right?
Dan,
They can't
apparently
hear you,
people
dude.
cannot hear you. I'm not sure why.
Oh,
can
I've
hear
got
you,
my
too.
microphone muted.
Oh wow, you talked a lot. Has it been this whole time?
Yep.
Well, apparently.
Oh wow.
Oh, I
Okay,
haven't
well,
done
welcome to the
that in like
show.
2 or 3 shows now, have I?
Oh,
Oh, well,
Oops.
I could
It'll
hear
be
me just
available on our
fine.
recorded version.
I could hear me just fine.
Oh,
and
Um,
you're
well,
the one telling us that we have to put it on a hands-free.
I would
no,
just
no,
like
no.
wanna.
And you know what? I'm gonna do something totally personal right now. I'm gonna give a shout out to my Taco Island friends.
hell yeah, go
because
ahead.
I have 2 real life friends in chat right now that I miss very much, and they keep saying hi, and now I have to like actually say hi because I miss them. Hi guys.
Hey,
Hi,
case
Taco
friends.
Taco Island friends.
Anyway,
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll have to
Have
repeat
fan.
myself, but I was talking about having a trader class and that their gameplay experience would be taking the risk of moving goods from one location to another. Like the adventurer or the harvester that comes up with the goods, they might not feel comfortable, or they might not enjoy the burden of like, I have all this stuff, I just want to get rid of it. They might not enjoy that. But if there was a class of players that was their job, was to move goods from this location to that location, based on anecdotal experience that I've seen in other MMOs, if you create a trader class, they will play that class and they'll be the ones moving goods. And then you can introduce things like road piracy and orcs raiding and that sort of thing as the goods are moving, because that, as long as that player is rewarded, they will be willing to take the risk. And then
I think it goes back to fun. Like Robin, I know we're gonna get an argument right now, but if people are able to be smugglers, and if I give my sword to somebody, I should be reimbursed, even though I lose it. If I took the time to get resources, spent hours crafting this sword, that's amazing, and decided to sell it that way, there should be maybe a little punishment. I agree, maybe there, because it has to be risky, but I should not be punished for the hours I spent in the game. Not only is that going to frustrate me, but it's going to make me not want to play it. Like, I think that's going too far.
What it comes down to is risk versus reward.
So
that's what it always comes down to.
So
you know,
I could
just
use
like
smugglers to undercut costs, maybe.
Well, you know, just like in real life, you know, if you want to get your goods smuggled, you know, you're gonna have to trust the person that you're smuggling your goods for.
Okay, well,
otherwise they can really screw you.
Like I can see it if there's good, like, okay, if it's faction based, right? Like there's the good city, and I want to smuggle it into the restricted territory, like you guys were talking about. Then I might have to use a smuggler. That's risky. Yeah, I could see that maybe happening. But there needs to be the auction house sort of thing there for me too.
Or just a player escrow.
To trusting a player.
I think there comes a point where we need to stop like babysitting players and actually give players the choice. Do I want to do this or not? Make those choices very clear. Someone shouldn't just accidentally lose the sword, because that will just not work in games today. People will actually quit over that and never come back ever again.
Exactly.
I'm pretty sure. Like if Chad loses his shiny pink rare armor, he's going. Yeah, that's right. So,
shots fired.
You had to out him about shiny pink armor on a live podcast.
Bro, you just got trebucheted from across the wall.
Trebucheted from across the pond. Come on.
I'm pretty safe until I move. So
I'm for a system, but it has to be done in certain, like if I have my sword and I'm going to give it to this person to sell it for me, as long as there's that like that escrow, right? Like I'm not giving it to you until I see the money, and you don't get the sword until I accept that sort of thing. Because otherwise, if people can just take it and then like, oh, that's it, no, that's where you get into that
That's fine. Reputation
Well,
too. Add a reputation system for
Well, that's
survivors.
where you get into the
So-
realms of just stop playing because screw this game. I just lost all that work and I'm done.
Well, okay, but put reputation is what I'm saying on the
Wait.
vendors. So if I trust a player, I can look at their reputation. If they've been smuggled from before, blah blah blah, then I won't trust them as much. And then that has to do with reputation
In a
itself.
free to in a free to play
If-
game with
if-
like I'm just
if-
going to delete this
that's
and make the
true.
next one.
If free to play actually has a lot of problems when it comes to a system like that, right? So many people.
Chewy, you got called out.
What's up?
I'm
If
with
they-
You said life of consequences. Sound familiar?
Hey, I'm fine with it because well, and we were in the show meeting notes. We had talked about this before, like the difference in a player-driven economy between me and Kailes is that I hoard everything. I never buy anything. I just, I end up with like tunes full of banks full of stuff because I don't ever feel comfortable selling it or getting rid of it. So in a game setting like that, I would never take the risk. It's just not in my nature to be like, I just want to get rid of this stuff because at the point where I'm just want to get rid of stuff, I don't care if I lose it.
If they ever implement something like this, maybe they will, maybe they won't. Hopefully they'll consider. They could take a real life example from it. I'm a truck driver. I'm a company man, but there's also a system within truck driving to where the independents they go through brokers, and the customers contact the brokers, pay the brokers, and then the brokers pay the truck drivers. And a system of brokers could actually work in that favor.
Oh, yeah, that and even like because Eve also has insurance, so like maybe you can insure your goods or something like that in case it gets lost. But I mean, again, we're adding levels of complexity to an economy system.
Yeah, this is a giant complex picture. Like, we're all proposing solutions, but they are all not one solution. They all need to kind of play together. It needs to be a dynamic, complex experience. There needs to be multiple facets. Like, I can trust the player to go ahead and travel goods. Maybe it's faster if I travel to the city. There's still auction houses available, but then I worry about the caravans, and I worry about broker fees, and I worry about availability of my item based on proximity to other cities, and maybe if orcs are invading the trade routes, stuff like that. Like, all these systems have to play together to create a really fun player-driven economy. And like I think Robin came up with the observation is in our notes that there is no real fantasy game with a true player-driven economy, and they say this is going to be the biggest sandbox ever made.
True.
Can they not have some kind of economy like this and have it be considered the biggest sandbox ever made? Do you guys think so? Is this a system? Do you guys want a player-driven economy?
I do, and I want to see a regional economy because I think that's one of the things that makes games interesting is to see how the different regions develop. But with different servers, it's kind of I don't know. I have trouble imagining it.
I want it, but quite honestly, like, it's not going to happen.
Quasi would be good, right?
I mean,
like halfway in between, have
yeah,
the
but
sort of system
how do you
encourage
do it
player
halfway
interaction.
though? Because people want like gold from quests, for example. Just a really basic example. People don't want to pay outrageous gold fees to repair the gear, right, or to travel to other places. But that's kind of needed if you want to do it halfway, because
Scarcity is important.
if you go from level 1 to 60 or 80, I say levels, EQN will not have levels, but if you progress through a game and you will get gold from doing stuff, then that gold needs to leave the economy again. That's the way it works, because if it doesn't work that way, you have too much gold around lying
Now
around.
we're talking about economics, yes.
So
Savings doesn't
this
count
is
for
why
anything. You need
every
people to reimburse
game
or
economy goes to hell. Because
Plus
we're all
inflation.
doing too many quests. We're killing too many rats, and yeah.
I think it has to do with also the inflation. Like, you start off with only a couple copper, but then you start raiding mobs that give you platinum, for instance, in EverQuest. So obviously, once you have the platinum, then it's so easy to undercut everything that's lower profit. You can just buy it, resell it, sort of play the market game because you're automatically rich because of the time you've played.
But
you need one level of scarcity for the money, for the items. I don't know. I think it's possible since there's no vertical progression.
It wouldn't be a bad idea to get an insight of someone who's actually worked on economics in the gaming industry. But in my opinion, the opinion of what people want to play, want to put up with as a gold sink, is way and way lower than what it actually should be to keep the economy in check, and that's not even covering exploiters, dupers, and other stuff that's basically
Yeah.
wrecking the economy at the same time.
I'm more concerned about the fun of it, and I can have fun in a lot of different ways. But the one thing that I don't want to have to do is worry about having a job in the game to get the money to have the fun.
Yeah. See, that's why you need both systems, I think.
Right,
I
and
should
and
be
I
able to create a shop, and I should be able to use trade routes that are player driven. I should be able to do all that, but of course there's risk involved, and maybe I get benefits in my cost reduction. I'm able to make more profit because of it, but at the same time, I need a trusted set of individuals for what are those called? Hellbugs to eat the world.
is it the
Sorry, I had
defiance
to do
of
that.
Well-
I was like watching you at the screen. I just had to do that.
Well,
I had to get the angle right though.
didn't one of the devs mention that there may be the possibility of, with our emergent AI merchants, that there would be greedy mobs, or I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
they
greedy
definitely said that. They
shopkeepers?
said mobs might be able to steal your weapons, maybe hypothetically.
whoa.
Imagine that.
I
Class.
Delmon brought up a good point. How do you have a purely player economy when like you have reward money influencing it with things like the chrono?
The what?
Yeah, well,
Uh,
then you limit what can be traded.
Yeah.
You limit the
See,
chrono to only an auction house where it has to be traded for a set price. You don't let it be traded through players or something like that. That's the easy answer.
But then
I-
that wouldn't be fair because if you're spending real money on a chrono, I should be able to decide how I sell it.
That's true. I guess it's
Is
just
it-
risky
well,
to
and-
take,
and-
right?
wait, Barb Tail brought up his LARP, and one of the LARPs that I was involved in
That's
really
a chrono exists. Let's remember that.
really they did an auction, a charity auction, and they would auction out special things in their LARP world. And one of the problems that they ran into is that there was just a handful of people that were upper class, and they just dominated. They just bought everything at that auction. And in their LARP, now basically they just became power gamers. And I can see where you kind of want to balance that out a little bit. But
What's
I
the
don't
mug?
know.
I can't really see it.
It's a Space Needle.
Oh, nice.
Oops.
Cool beans.
I've been there.
You have?
Seattle Space Needle?
I've traveled this country.
Yep, Seattle Space Needle. Bought it on
I
Valentine's.
the furthest
Oh,
into the
cool.
furthest into Florida I've ever been is Pensacola.
Well, everyone needs to come on down here and party the Flatus tonight.
Hey, Kay,
It's-
my mom
Hardtail's
tells me
close.
I've been there.
Hardtail's real close.
I have never been to Florida before.
Wow, what?
I
I
did.
can get 2 people in free to Disney. Only 2 though. Only 2.
I'll be down there, Chuana. Just let me know when.
I had to say this. Oh no.
Oh,
Sorry, those
Oh.
bear hugs soon become wrestling moves.
I don't know. If it's gonna be a sandbox and I'm gonna enjoy a sandbox experience, I should be able to be a vendor. I agree with Tanlin and the class idea. It has to be fun. Like UO had a vendor system where I could set up shops and stuff like that. Like let me hire NPCs eventually where I don't have to let it be such of an investment of my time and such a time sink. I could actually go out and do other things. Just make it an intricate system
Well,
and
one
be
thing-
careful of trolls.
One thing I do not really want to see is if you look in a lot of these Asian MMOs, I've only played a couple of them. Let's take Age of Wushu for example. You go into the central trade market and there is shops everywhere. It's so hard to figure out what's being sold without looking at their description. Aeon's another perfect example.
I have an answer for that. The EverQuest Next landmark system they're working on, the social functions where you can rate builds and follow others. What if you had that for shops? What if shops could be highly rated and you could
like a Yelp?
look to see what vendors are like a Yelp? What there's
I
a
would
Yelp
love
app
that
for
idea
EverQuest
because
built in.
Well,
I spend so
that
much time in my shop in Star Wars Galaxies, having
That's-
everything stocked into like 20
You'll be
units
really
each,
highly
having
rated for your
everything.
customer
So
service.
yes,
no, that's so key is that like when we're thinking about MMOs and we think about like these are the tools that the developers are going to give us in the game, and then we have to think about like what are people going to use outside of the game that
That
make
too.
it incredibly easy to be relevant to the game, and having Yelp for in-game stores would be huge. It's like go to this store
Just
because
don't
they
allow teleportation to it. Still make you travel, right? Can we
right
agree
right.
on that?
Or
Well,
yeah,
Second Life does something similar. They got
Yeah.
a central listing, and then you can actually teleport to the shop place, and you can browse around their store. And and in a lot of cases, it's actually, it could be, a 20-acre store that you got to look through all the displays.
I think I think we're onto something. I think the developers might be scratching their chin a little bit. Can we say confirmed social media functionality for player-driven shops? I don't know.
So,
Probably not.
well,
But
even
so
if
in
they
other
don't,
words,
even if they don't put it in the game, it's going to be outside of the game. People are going to
yeah,
make
and but
people are
they
going to
should put it
make
in the game.
pages and stuff like that. Because I've already seen that in other games. Dragon Realms had that where people would create web pages and they would be like, "This is what I can make." And if you, there was no fast travel in Dragon Realms, and they would say, "You just, get a hold of me in game and you tell me what you want, and I will make it for you." And this is what I can make because in Dragon Realms, being able to
Yeah,
make something, especially the high end stuff, was really really hard.
that's true. Viraga brings up a question too. What about keeping the housing from EQ2 shop features? I think that has to do with the selling of housing, sort of like the selling of real estate in what's going to be Econex landmark. I think I should be able to sell a house or land if I put the time into it. Why not make that a commodity itself? It's the ultimate form of crafting, isn't it?
It's probably going to sell for real money, though.
It
Not
well,
in-game money. Wasn't that kinda
it kind of has
confirmed?
to be both, though. It has to be both, doesn't it?
Well, that wouldn't be the first time where you can, for
Oh, market
example,
displays.
transfer
Oh,
gems and.
I was wrong. Sorry. It actually has to do
Uh,
with the idea that traveling to somebody's house is cheaper than buying it on the auction house. And I think we sort of agreed with that.
yes,
Like,
absolutely.
Call agrees with it definitely.
I wouldn't
Yeah,
mind
it's
seeing
a good system.
I wouldn't mind seeing like the whole auction house just
And
being more of a broker, where you post a note saying what you want, and then somebody else can read the note. But unless they have all of that stuff stockpiled, they have to make it for you. But then there is no
That's a good idea.
there is no
Like you still can
instant.
travel no matter what.
Right there, like Eve, like there is no instant. There it is, bam. Either the seller has to come and bring it to you, or you have to go to the seller. One of the two. Um,
I actually like that idea.
Make it like a newspaper. You can't buy from the newspaper. You
you
can buy
right,
from
and
Amazon.
and
It's not
right.
Amazon. It's a
You go
newspaper.
to the
That's
broker,
cool.
you look at see who has notes up to say they have stuff for sale, or you put a new note up.
ye old Craigslist.
okay, but we all say that we like that now. But will we actually like that though? Will you guys actually like that? Because I have traveled to people to actually pick my stuff up. I've enjoyed it at the time. I also know that like I have dinner in 10 minutes. I need to get to Lock, which is like I need to wait for the starport to arrive. That's going to cost me 5
Yeah.
minutes. Then I need to get on my speeder. Either wait for the shuttle, which goes every 7 minutes, or I need to drive for 10 minutes.
I think that's
Okay.
like
So
the
okay,
options.
are we going to enjoy that? I would
Here's
enjoy that. I know I would, but a lot of people are just going to look like, okay, I'm going to be spending 20 minutes to pick up my item.
I
Well, here-
guess. Go ahead.
Here's an
Lindsay.
idea
on
that.
how
Sorry, go ahead, Kay.
it really depends on how important the item is to me if I'm willing to spend the time and the effort to go pick up that item. If it's something that I really want or really need and I can't find it anywhere else, hell yes, I'm going to take the time to go pick it up. Whether it's putting off dinner for 20 minutes or, not getting my other cup of coffee. But if it's trivial, if it's not important to me, then no, I won't waste my time.
Well,
Yeah.
here's
Then you
an
will not get
idea
that
that
item in that system.
here's an idea that could perhaps work. And let's say they do have the idea, the smugglers and the traders and all that. As you have a broker service, if you want to sell something, you give it to the broker. If it's in the same location, you can get it. Almost immediately. But if it's in another city, let's say a trader can go to the broker, pick up like a work order or a trade or whatever you want to call it, and then they go and they either go to the place or they take it to the place, et cetera, et cetera. That way, you still got a central location people can go to actually trade. If any of that makes sense.
That's true. No, I get that. That's kind of cool.
I would look. I never got to experience that because I didn't really play a whole lot of EverQuest or EverQuest 2. But like a central market area, I think is huge for community building.
True, it just, like Delman just said, and what we've been saying, it goes back to, is it fun? And does it become a job? You should not have people playing a game where they're not having fun
Right.
24/7. The
Right.
game is still for entertainment.
Listen, I was gonna say you can also, and you know, at the broker, you could also say, listen, here's a price if you come pick it up. Here's a price if you want me to mail it to you because it's gonna cost me X amount of money. So it's kind of like think of eBay. Pay this, or you can
Buy it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you can get it. It's instant gratification. You pay a little bit extra to cover the cost of it going through the mail or whatever it is. You get it instantly, and there you go. You can have the people. Listen, there are people that'll save money. There are people. Listen, I can name one, and he's in our chat right now, and his name's Delmont. He won't spend the money to send items to Alicious. And he'll message if he's still around. I'll say, nope, I will not spend that money to send items to her. He saves his class.
And that's why he's rich in games and you're poor, friends.
Yes,
I'm
that's
just
exactly
pointing it out.
What were you gonna say, Kai?
So what? So has anybody in here actually played the not Star Wars Galaxies, Star Wars: The Old Republic?
Yes.
In beta.
Ashamed to raise my hand at the moment, so it's going to be.
No, I played it, but I never found the auction house. I never saw the.
So in Star Wars Galaxies, at some point you end up with what's called a crew, and you can ask your crew to go sell vendor trash in your bags, and you won't have access to your crew while they're off selling your stuff for you. What if they implemented something similar to that, where you had a crew where their sole purpose was running to the auction house and posting things for you, under specific set player parameters, or running to another player and picking things up for you or dropping things off for you? It would solve the issue of instant gratification. You know what's coming. You have something to go pick it up. The other player knows something is coming to pick it up. It's still going to have to take time, but at the same time, it feels like it's going to be now because you know it's being done right now, but you can still be busy with something else.
The biggest question there, should the NPC actually be in the world during the transfer?
Oh, so that they could be intercepted and possibly raided.
I think so. Hell yeah, man. If there's this AI system. The only thing is, I heard that the way they modify the AI in the game is so that when there's not necessarily anything going on in a part of the world, the AI sort of shuts down, you know, for processing and things like that.
Right, to slow down server
so
load.
Then I guess you could, I don't know, it might be an extra facet that's not worth the time programming.
They start developing sentient being thoughts. And
Yeah, exactly.
I just have to be the one that points out, though, like, why was that option in Star Wars: The Old Republic in the first place, and why wasn't there just a button on the fender? Did you guys ever understand?
No. It was you're out there adventuring out in the world, and your bags are full, and you have your companion that's following you around. You can go tell your companion to go.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Sell all of my vendor trash. But again, one of my biggest things is get rid of vendor trash. I hate it. I hate the whole system of it. Because if there was other ways to make money,
it can have use.
Vendor trash or drops.
No, vendor trash. Because, for example, in Star Wars Galaxy, the vendor trash, I was looking for the vendor trash because I wanted to use it in my house to decorate. Now, if we pull it back to EQ landmark, I'm going to, if you can actually visually see all the loot in the world in your house, which I would hope, because no one has done it in a while, like every little piece has an actual model, then
that could be cool. What if vendor trash was
like a million different pieces of bone is going to be awesome, because you're going to be able to put that bone in your house and make a big ass skeleton with it.
It's not vendor trash, because vendor trash implies that it's useless.
It's useless. The old
Well, what if the vendors actually stop wanting to buy it because they got so much of it?
That's the other thing. It's like, why does this have value? It's nothing.
True.
The vendor
make everything in the world convenient. Like, give everything a purpose is what I mean. Like, as the Robin was saying with the bones.
No, it's fine. If there's
the merchant is going, dude, I already got 1,000 rat foot. You're not gonna give me any more.
Yeah, again, this gets into the area of the game where I'm like, I don't know. It's all I want to do is be able to, like, if I'm crafting something, have fun while I'm crafting it, and then if somebody wants to buy something that I make, that there is a reasonable and fun system in place for them to be able to buy from me.
Spindane actually says something cool. Do you know how many troll skulls I have? Grind it up for bone meal.
See, that's the thing. Like, we don't know what the drops are going to be yet. Like, how much of the stuff that drops off a mob is useful for crafting? Is it all of it? Can it all be used for crafting, and can it all be placed in a house? Like, if, let's say, a specific mob always drops, like, rags, and I got a bajillion rags, I'm just going to, like, everything in my house, like, you have plenty of rags. I'm going to have a rag wall. Just a wall of rags.
Well, that also, Omid actually, his comment actually reminded me of something. And it does deal with the economy. What type of monetary system do you think would be best? Go back to classic EQ, where you got copper, silver, gold, platinum, or go with the universal money system?
We just lost Chad. And it's screwed.
No.
We lost Chad, and
Down.
it's screwing up the Skype call.
Uh-oh.
Overlay.
Well, everybody, that's, Chewie is on a raft.
Hold on. Yeah, there's a problem, and they're trying to bring it back. Okay.
Why
I
you
think
fix
he
it?
just lost connection because
Yeah.
he's also not on TeamSpeak anymore.
Well, you know what? That's the second time it's happened to him. I mute my mic, he crashes.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, technically we still got video, but do they got sound right now?
Yeah,
I was-
absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
But,
and
'cause I really haven't chimed in a whole lot about this money issue.
Yeah, I was gonna say our viewers don't really seem especially
interested in this.
In,
Well, we had.
in the economy.
Maybe. Listen,
Well, we have
guys,
10 minutes left, and we didn't
I'm
talk
gonna
about the
talk.
round. Well, we didn't talk about the roundtable questions at all. The show.
Gnomes.
My apologies.
No, and
That's
we.
cool.
I was thinking that we might want to bring up the guild, one guild or two guild, and see if the people wanted us to talk about that in like maybe our next show or our future shows.
Well, if you'd allow me to, I'll go find the post that I made on the official SOE boards and put my 2 cents in for that question.
Sure, go ahead.
Hey, give me a moment. I'll go find it.
Well, while you're looking, I will step in. I like the idea of having a family guild. Like, my family may not play these games, like not all of them, but like my uncle and my little cousin will. You know, and that's kind of cool. Like, I could still have my main guild, but I could still have a guild with them where they're like, "Oh, hey, you want to go do something?" If I'm not like raiding or if there is raiding, I kind of like that idea.
I know that Chad was definitely against the idea of multiple guild membership, but
I'm as well.
Okay.
And for the only reason that it is going to complicate things so much for guild leaders. Because as a guild leader, like, I would like to know where my people are hanging out. I would, if they're playing, I would like to know where they are. And I also would like to see them in a guild chat. Because a guild for me is about social connections. So if they're playing, I would actually like to connect with them. So if we step away from guilds, I could like understand it. Like, so for example, call it something else and make it so that you can join multiples and every one of your characters is in all of those guilds. Then it works because then you're always also online and in those channels.
Yeah.
But if you make it so that like now you're visible in one guild and then you're gone in another, that is just it's such a nightmare for guild leaders, especially if you're looking towards like people who want to do a little bit more serious gameplay. It will be an absolute nightmare.
I was gonna say, there's my other side of it. Like, I like the idea, but then the other side of it for me is because being a former guild leader, I can't think of a time where, like, if you allow them to have like multiple guilds, and you're gonna run into that situation where, like, oh, okay, and I'm just gonna go. There may not be raiding, guys, but I'm just saying, if we were raiding on Tuesday night and they're in their other guild, and I need that person to be there to help out, then they're not there. What happens
Okay,
then?
I finally found the post here. Whenever are we back? Are we back live?
Yeah, no, we never went off the air or never stopped broadcasting.
Okay.
We never went off.
Okay,
We
my
just
apologies.
got rid of Chad and brought everything back up.
Okay,
We got
here's my
rich
post on the
sad.
official EverQuest forums here. Concerning this, I'm in the camp of one character, one guild type of philosophy. However, many years of playing Second Life, I've gotten used to the idea of being able to represent one group while still having access to the chats of other interest groups. They are not guilds as per se, just groups. Where a guild is concerned, this idea could be carried over. Guilds are simply that, a group of people who band together for a common goal. You represent them, you display their colors, etc. Interest groups could be different, much like how in EQ1 you can create and join different chat channels, but I would like to see the idea further developed with its own dedicated interface to manage it. As
Interface.
just an This is an example. I belong to a guild called Epic Raiders. We are friends, and to an extent, we raid as the name implies. There's a leadership structure, benefits for being a member of the guild, access to the guild bank hall, etc. All the normal things you'd expect from such. However, I'd like to join a community role players on the servers. In EQ1 and other MMOs, this is accomplished by finding the channel through word of mouth or through community website dedicated to such. It's simple, it's neat, and basically boring. I'm not saying it's a bad idea, I'd just like to see more. Suppose there's an interface system in place that I could browse these different interest groups. Perhaps some are closed to the public, others are open for enrollment. I could see a brief description of the channel slash community. Perhaps I could see the entire member list or just see the moderators if it is an exceptionally large community. This could be perhaps be accomplished by settings in the interface for the mods channel's owners. With that said, there could be a limit on how many community groups one can join. Second Life caps it at 45. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. But I'm not suggesting copy the methods that they took, but it could provide some inspiration for a workable system that could suit people's needs.
And for my take on this, when I was a guild lead, I was a guild lead of a very, very small, very, very role play oriented guild, and so I had that network of friends, and it was my guild, and I was the guild lead. And when I logged in, those were the people I wanted to hang out and talk with and do fun things, crazy things, whatever anybody came up with, we would try and give it a go. But I was also part of a cooperative raid alliance between three guilds, and those different guilds had different philosophies, different communities than the guild that I had, and then I was also part of a huge PvP alliance. And that only reason that PvP alliance came into being is because like maybe once or twice a month we would do huge epic PvP battles. And so there was different there were different social constructs that made me feel comfortable doing different things with different groups, and I'd like to see that in EverQuest next. And my only recommendation is that you have like you had brought up different tool sets for different social groups and allow people to adjust them as they see fit, including if you want a guild and you want to lock it down, like, hey, if you're in this, you're only in this. I'm okay with that because it's like one of those agreements to membership into this is like I know that when I join this, it's exclusive and I can only belong to this. I'm fine with that. Um, just give because even if you say like you can only be in one guild, people will just look outside of the game and they will create their own networks of players outside of the game system if they don't have it in the game. And we've already seen that in social media. It's like, hey, on this server, we're going to go try and do this. We're trying to pick up 2 or 3 extra people and we're going to try and make it a weekly thing. You will draw people in there and they won't want to leave the guild that they might be in. And so, Kylest, I think you're the only one that hasn't weighed in yet.
I honestly really don't have a preference. I'm okay with either. Whichever option they pick isn't going to bother me because
Well,
I don't feel strongly opinionated on it.
when I played Guild War 2, of course, I was a member of 7, 10, 12 guilds, and I stuck with one ultimately. They were people I hung around with. They were people. The other guilds were just there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
And
Right, and people are talking about like the different tool sets, and this is in World of Warcraft where I was talking about like the three separate groups that I was interacting with, and you could get there were in-game tools that made that work pretty easily because you could create a calendar and you can invite anybody into that calendar. A guild member could invite anybody in their guild or everybody in their guild from that interface. If you got invited to that event, well, and this is a couple of years ago, so I don't know if they've tweaked it or not, but if you got invited into that and you weren't like a moderator, you couldn't invite your guild. And that's where you have this like, I would like to do something, but I can't because the tools limit me. And so it's not about like the it's not about like the game, it's about like the tools are blocking something that I want to do. And that's when you start looking outside of the game at like add-ons or other social media.
Well, to like what I've been talking about in chat a little bit is how the tools for guild leaders and guild officers and guilds in general has been like really stale the last couple of years. To like name one example of what I would really like to see as like a guild leader, when someone joins my guild, I would really like to see what are the guilds they've been part of. I can spend 20 minutes asking
Oh,
around on the server community and find out in which guilds they have been in anyway,
I
or the
would
game can just provide it to me. I
I would
mean, honestly, let's be realistic. That's not a privacy issue, right?
No. And perhaps even have a recommendation system. Say if somebody leaves their guild in good favor, the guild leader could write a small note when about why
Yeah,
they left the guild.
I think
that could work.
that Eve does that too, right? Like it has your corporate history. Does anybody in Eve
Yeah.
that plays Eve knows?
It does.
Yeah, somebody in
I
chat was mentioning that too.
I
Have
would
something like that.
agreed. I would like. It's in. I'm going to say that role play guilds or role play servers are a little bit more sensitive to this issue. Like they want to know where you've come from, because chances are, if you got kicked out of one role play guild, there's a reason for it, and the people that are bringing you, it might be bringing you into their role play guild, might want to know about it. And so, if they could see your history and talk to like, hey, this person was in your guild, what happened? It would I say no reason not to. That's not a privacy issue. I think that that's one of those what is it? The consequence of your actions. What's their pillar?
Guild prison hall button to send people to timeout. I would love that.
Guild prison.
Oh my, wow.
People would
I-
stop playing. Just like,
In my guild, I would.
Well, you know what? When I've
That's a little
joined,
bit-
I have joined guild where the lowest rank has no guild talk permission, and that was how they would.
Yes.
If two people were fighting, right, and this is one of those admin things. Like you have the guild lead that can kick people out, but maybe you have like a lower level of officer where they don't have permission to just straight kick people up out of the guild, but they could demote them and be like, "Hey, you two are fighting. You can take it to private whispers, or you'll get demoted to you can't bother the rest of us."
Speaking of that, I'd love to be able to see where you can have different style of, I want to say, governments of guilds. Let's say, standard dictatorship style guild, which most other things do, or you could opt to have a democratic style, or perhaps even a monarchy style of guild, if that makes any sense.
I rule my guild with Iron Fist. I just let everybody know.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like my tiny guild, the only guild that I've really been guild leader of. It was a role play guild, and I role played pretty much a fanatic. Like it's my way or else.
Dictatorship.
Yeah, but I again I agree with one of the other guilds communities that I've been part of. They have a really cool system where they don't want a guild leader. They don't want someone to have ownership of the guild, and so once a month they transfer who is the guild lead between the core officers, so that no one gets too comfortable with the power because they know in a month they give it up.
I
And-
actually like that too.
And again, that's like, could the game kind of like make a tool that you can just like plug in, play, and be like, okay, these are the four people
I hate to say it again, but Star Wars Galaxies actually had that.
where they had a rotating guild.
City Heroes, I
Yes,
believe.
they had a mayor class. Well, not a class, skill set, and every month, people in the city would vote for their mayor, and that the amount of votes decided who was the
I
new mayor.
actually like that.
And that person had control of the city, absolute control of the city. zoning rights, everything.
Terra
Taxes.
did that. Terra Online did that too. They added the ability
And
to.
it worked out to a degree. Again, there were quite a few flaws in player
Yeah,
cities
there
in
was.
general, which like made that a little bit of a pain where cities turned into ghost cities. But I mean, the core concept wasn't such a bad idea. I'm curious to see if that would actually work though these days, because people would kinda try to get too much influence with that.
I guess it's gonna come down. We really have to wait and see, because it's gonna come down on how the end game plays in EverQuest Next. Because if there is an end game, or how that's gonna work, it's gonna depend on how much we need people. Like, are we going to need alliances with guilds?
I I hope that
that-
alliances are not needed, but they're created organically because um, because guilds have a distinct flavor, and that's great. And what's actually, in my experience, has been even cooler is when those different flavors come together and then they form an alliance, and then they go do something bigger than any one single guild can
Yeah.
accomplish.
Think of who here's played City Heroes.
Not I.
I did.
Okay, well, think of how they did the super group, super villain, whatever their equivalent was, their alliances. You could have all these super groups together, and they could form an equal alliance. They had access. They had their own chats for each guild or group, but you also had the alliance chat, and they could also share super bases, which were guild halls, pretty much, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
See, I wasn't involved in alliances or anything back then. My personal life was a lot different back in my the beginning of my gaming career, if you'd like to call it that, like in my MMO gaming career. So the social aspect of it was completely lost on me.
Yeah. All right, folks. We're just after 9 Pacific, and what is it? That's midnight Eastern, right? So,
Yep, absolutely.
It's almost pumpkin time for me.
Pretty sure it's 6 a.m. here, guys.
Oh, it's
Right
definitely
outside
your
again.
pumpkin time, man.
all right. So, Gideon, your last thoughts, and we'll prepare to end the show. Any last thoughts? Anybody? I think that we actually did quite a bit of talking about the guild interface, and I mean, do you guys think we should do a segment specifically about this again, or do you think we covered most of it already?
I
With a
would
little bit
hope.
of thought, we can come up with a lot more.
I would
ideas.
hope that that the devs, if they're still listening, that they'd actually do another roundtable specific for what guild what individual guild what individual people in a guild would expect from a guild. If that makes any sense.
I have a couple other thoughts that I could bring up about it at a later show if we want to do that.
We can take it into consideration. It's a
Okay.
pretty good subject.
It's a terrible topic, interesting compared to what we know about the game so far. Most of the topics that we bring up are not horribly interesting because of how little we know. So we try and keep it about what we know about the game, and that's one of the reasons why we've kind of gone on about the guild interfaces, because that's one of the questions that the roundtable asked.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Anything else?
Nothing.
Gojira is asking for a personal revelation of some nature. And
I'm married. I'm married to her.
All right.
Personal revelation.
Sure. Here's a personal revelation, and I don't really hop on soapboxes all too often, but I'll hop on this one. Speaking from a guy who's been playing games for a big chunk of his life, and a lot of them are MMOs. I've played a lot of MMOs. We got to keep this in mind. As a community, we need to kind of think about how SOE's really stepping outside the box here, and it's going to be a tough sell. It really is going to be a tough sell, even for a free-to-play game. There's a lot of talk, and it's hard to say what this game is going to be fully. I mean, we're going to get Landmark soon, and that's going to be really cool. But for EverQuest Next, the game we're all, waiting for, we don't know what's around the corner. And everything we decide on these roundtable discussions, you can tell that they're really taking these to heart. So if you're just going in there and trolling those polls, because it's the internet and you can't really, people will troll anything they can. I mean, take those into consideration. I mean, very few game companies care about their communities and what they think and what they feel about their games, even if a game's coming out. So I would take that to heart the best we can. We're all people that played games, and I'm kind of tired of playing the same old MMO over and over again. I really am.
Yeah, I agree with you.
In case you missed that, Flatus, I was copying. I totally 100% agree.
Thanks.
And I admire you for stepping on that soapbox, because I am in agreement. We can troll things and just blow the game up and make it unfun, or we can really come together and build something that is better.
So Gojira is asking for a chair to be thrown at someone. I assure you that because Tamlin was so polite to be like, I'm married to that woman right there.
No, that's
not chairs thrown this evening.
If it makes you feel better.
I actually
good chairs.
I have.
It makes you feel better. Chewie through the chair. You just can't see it.
As my last parting thoughts here, Omid, if you're still here, thank you and the rest of the dev team for being so transparent. But please, some news would be great. We're kind of all on edge here.
I could personal revelation. I could go something a little bit more about my work.
Dude, do it! Look at his t-shirt. Look at his t-shirt. Look at his t-shirt.
It's backwards. It's backwards on Skype. Yeah, personal revelation. I work at Dryden Flight Research Center for NASA.
Ah, cool beans.
I have one.
Go ahead.
Gnomes.
Gnomes? You're a gnome in real life?
That's it. Gnomes.
I punt gnomes.
We're not friends then.
Gnomes are great in a stew.
Cal rolls
I'm
with his
trying
gnomies.
to think of what is my personal revelation? God, I don't really have one. Do I have one? Oh, yeah. Yeah, look, there's his NASA badge. Like, proof that he genuinely works for NASA. You know what? My personal revelation, there better be freaking PvP in this game, because I might be a Care Bear to your face, but deep down inside, I really just want to kill you in game. I want to do a rogue style from behind. I want you to never know it's coming. And as kind and polite as I might seem in person, I swear to God, I am laughing and cackling maniacally every stab of the way. That's my personal revelation. I might be sweet in person, but I tell you, rogues do it from behind.
And on that note, everybody, good night. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. See you next time.